Number: How a single SOS changed the galaxy's view of humanity. The mining ship Times, Terran Hope Times, drifted silently through the asteroid field of the Kepler 442 system, its hull scarred by countless impacts from space debris. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the cracked viewport. 3 months into what should have been a routine mining operation, everything had gone wrong. The crew of 47 humans had been extracting rare minerals from the asteroid belt when their main engine suffered a catastrophic failure. The explosion had torn through the engineering deck, killing 12 crew members instantly and leaving the ship stranded billions of kilometers from the nearest inhabited system. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the communications station, his voice tight with worry. "The oxygen recyclers are failing faster than we anticipated. We have maybe 6 days before the air becomes unbreathable." Sarah nodded grimly. She had known this moment would come. The ship's life support systems were designed for short-term mining operations, not extended survival situations. Food was running low, water recycling was operating at 50% capacity, and now the air itself was becoming poison. The Times, Terran Hope Times, was humanity's first deep space mining vessel, launched when Earth had finally developed faster-than-light communication, but still struggled with reliable FTL travel. The ship was supposed to prove that humans could compete with the established galactic powers in resource extraction. Instead, it had become a tomb, drifting through the void. Sarah had been sending distress signals for weeks, broadcasting on every known frequency used by the Galactic Coalition. The Coalition was a loose alliance of 7 major species that controlled most of the inhabited galaxy. Humans were not members. In fact, most Coalition species barely acknowledged humanity's existence. The Zephyrians, tall and graceful with crystalline skin, considered humans to be primitive and crude. The Mokari, a hive-mind species with insectoid features, viewed human individualism as a dangerous mental illness. The Threnodai, energy beings who could manipulate matter at the molecular level, saw humans as barely evolved animals. The Kalari, aquatic creatures with tentacled faces, found human emotions to be repulsive and chaotic. The Vorthan, militaristic reptilians, thought humans were too weak to survive in the galaxy. The Nexari, cybernetic beings who had replaced most of their organic parts with machines, believed humans were obsolete. Finally, the Etherians, gaseous beings who lived in the upper atmospheres of gas giants, considered humans to be earthbound pests. None of these species had ever responded to human attempts at communication. Earth's diplomats had been trying for decades to establish formal contact, but their messages were either ignored or met with contempt. Humanity was seen as a young, insignificant species that had barely crawled out of its home system. "Any response to our distress calls?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Nothing, Captain," Webb replied. "I've been broadcasting continuously on all Coalition frequencies, but there's just silence." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief medical officer, approached the captain with her latest report. "Morale is dropping fast, Sarah. The crew knows we're in trouble. Some of them are starting to talk about ending things on their own terms." Sarah felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. She couldn't blame them. Dying slowly of suffocation or starvation was not an appealing prospect. But she wasn't ready to give up yet. "Keep monitoring the communications array," she ordered Webb, and Elena, organize the crew into shifts for rationing. "We need to make our supplies last as long as possible." As the hours passed, the situation grew more desperate. The ship's computer systems began failing one by one as power was diverted to life support. The artificial gravity fluctuated, causing tools and equipment to float randomly through the corridors. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows throughout the ship. Chief Engineer Tom Rodriguez emerged from the lower decks, his face streaked with grease and exhaustion. "Captain, I've done everything I can with the engines. The fusion core is completely fried, and we don't have the materials to rebuild it. We're stuck here." Sarah looked around at her crew. These were good people, skilled professionals who had volunteered for a dangerous mission to help humanity establish itself among the stars. They didn't deserve to die forgotten in the void. That night, as Sarah sat alone in her quarters reviewing their dwindling supplies, she made a decision that would change everything. She would send one final message, but this time it would be different. Instead of a standard distress call asking for rescue, she would send something that might actually get the galaxy's attention. She activated her personal communication device and began to record. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran mining vessel Times Hope **. We are stranded in the Kepler 442 asteroid field with critical system failures. Our crew of 47 humans will be dead within 6 days. I know that none of the coalition species consider us worth saving. We're just primitive humans, after all. But before we die, I want the galaxy to know something about us." Sarah paused, thinking about what she wanted to say. How could she make these alien species understand what humanity was really about? When our ship was damaged, 12 of our crew died immediately. The survivors could have taken the remaining escape pods and abandoned ship. There were enough pods for about half the crew, but no one left. Not one person. Chief Engineer Rodriguez refused to abandon his post, even when the radiation levels in engineering became lethal. Dr. 18 Juzen. On Kleintown. And 18 Juzen, 25%. Dr. On Kleintown. 18 Juzen. And 18 Juzen. Vasquez has been working without sleep for 3 days to keep everyone healthy. Lieutenant Webb has been sending distress calls continuously. Even though we all know no one is listening. She stood up and walked to her small viewport, looking out at the distant stars. We humans have a saying. We leave no one behind. It's not just words to us. It's who we are. When one of us is in trouble, the rest of us risk everything to help. We don't abandon our crew, our friends, our family. We stand together, even when it means we all die together. Sarah's voice grew stronger as she continued. I know you think we're primitive. Maybe we are. We don't have crystalline skin or hive minds or energy manipulation abilities. We're just biological creatures with short lifespans and fragile bodies. But we have something that maybe you've forgotten. We have loyalty. We have courage. We have love. Life. She thought about her own family back on Earth, her parents who had worried about her taking this dangerous assignment, her sister who had begged her to stay home. Our ship is dying, and we're dying with it. But we're not afraid. We're together. And that's what matters. If this message reaches anyone, I want you to know that 47 humans died here together, and not one of them gave up on the others. Sarah looked around her quarters one more time, at the photos of Earth, at the small mementos she had brought from home. This is our final message. We are the crew of the Times, Terran Hope *, and we are proud to be human. Chen out. She encrypted the message with coordinates and ship specifications, then sent it out on every frequency the communications array could reach. It would take time to propagate across the galaxy, but eventually, someone would receive it. As the days passed, the crew of the Times, Terran Hope Times, faced their fate with quiet dignity. They shared their remaining food equally, with senior officers taking smaller portions so the younger crew members could eat more. They told stories about home, about their families, about their dreams for humanity's future among the stars. On the 5th day, as the oxygen levels dropped to critical levels and the crew gathered in the main cargo bay to be together at the end, something unexpected happened. "Captain!" Webb shouted from his portable communication unit. "I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. Multiple ships, approaching fast." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. "Coalition ships? I'm not sure. The signatures are strange. Some of them look Zephyrian, but there are others I don't recognize." Through the cargo bay's large viewing port, tiny points of light began to appear against the starfield. As they grew larger, the crew could see that they were indeed ships, dozens of them, representing multiple species. The lead vessel, a graceful Zephyrian cruiser with flowing lines and crystalline hull plating, opened a communication channel. Terran vessel times Hope asterisk. This is High Commander Zethki of the Zephyrian Protectorate. We received your message. Prepare for emergency docking procedures. Sarah stared at the communication unit in disbelief. The Zephyrians had come. Not just the Zephyrians, but as she looked at the approaching fleet, she could see ships from at least 4 different coalition species. High Commander, Sarah responded, her voice shaking with emotion. Your message was received throughout coalition space, Captain Chen. It has been illuminating. Stand by for rescue operations. As the rescue ships surrounded the dying times, Terran Hope asterisk, Sarah realized that something fundamental had changed. For the first time, the galaxy was paying attention to humanity. Their simple message about loyalty and courage had somehow reached across the vast distances between species and touched something that had been dormant for too long. The rescue was just the beginning. The real story was what would happen next, when the galaxy's most powerful species had to confront what they had learned about these strange, primitive humans who refused to abandon each other, even in the face of certain death. Number. How a single SOS changed the galaxy's view of humanity. Second part. The rescue operation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Ships from 6 different coalition species worked together in a coordinated effort that stunned military observers throughout known space. Zephyrian medical vessels deployed their healing crystals to stabilize the dying humans. Mokari engineering drones swarmed over the times Terran Hope asterisk, somehow managing to temporarily restore life support systems. Even the normally aloof Etherians contributed, their gaseous forms providing emergency atmosphere while the ship was evacuated. Captain Sarah Chen found herself aboard the Zephyrian flagship times Luminous Truth asterisk, facing High Commander Zethki in a crystalline chamber that hummed with soft, harmonic energy. The Zephyrian leader was tall and elegant, her translucent skin shifting through subtle shades of blue and silver as her emotions changed. Her large, multifaceted eyes studied Sarah with an intensity that was both unsettling and somehow respectful. Your message has caused quite a disturbance throughout coalition space, Captain Chen, Zethki said, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. In 300 cycles, no species has ever broadcast such raw honesty about their nature. Sarah was still processing the reality of her situation. Hours ago, she had been preparing to die with her crew. Now she sat in the command chamber of one of the most advanced ships in the galaxy, speaking with a being she had never imagined would acknowledge her existence. We were dying, Sarah replied simply. I wanted the galaxy to know who we really were before we were gone. Zethki's skin shifted to a deeper blue, indicating what Sarah would later learn was profound contemplation. Tell me, Captain, in your final moments, why did none of your crew attempt to save themselves? Our analysts have studied your ship's layout. There were escape pods. Some of your people could have survived. Sarah met the alien's gaze steadily. Because that's not who we are. We don't leave people behind. It doesn't matter if it means we all die together. The Zephyrian commander was silent for a long moment, her crystalline features reflecting the chamber's soft light. This concept is difficult for us to comprehend. In our society, individual survival is logical. The continuation of knowledge and genetic material serves the greater good. Maybe, Sarah said. But what's the point of surviving if you have to abandon the people you care about? What kind of life is that? Right. These conversations were happening throughout the rescue fleet. Dr. Elena Vasquez found herself in the medical bay of a Kelari ship, surrounded by tentacled beings who communicated through complex chemical signals in the water-filled environment. They had provided her with a breathing apparatus and were asking endless questions about human medical practices. Your species maintains emotional bonds, even in life-threatening situations, observed Chief Medical Analyst Keftor through the translation device. This is highly inefficient. Emotions cloud judgment and lead to poor decision-making. Elena smiled, thinking about how she had worked for 3 straight days without sleep to keep her crewmates healthy. Emotions don't cloud our judgment. They give us strength. When I see my friends suffering, It makes me want to work harder to help them. When I know they're counting on me, I can push past my own limits. The Kilari physician's tentacles writhed in what Elena was beginning to recognize as confusion. But the stress hormones released during emotional attachment actually impair cognitive function. How can this be beneficial? Because we're not just individual units trying to survive, Elena explained. We're part of something bigger. My strength comes from knowing that my crewmates would do anything to save me, and that I would do anything to save them. That bond makes us all stronger than we could ever be alone. Wine. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Tom Rodriguez was aboard a Nexari research vessel, his organic form starkly contrasting with the cybernetic beings around him. The Nexari had replaced most of their biological components with advanced technology, viewing organic life as primitive and inefficient. Your loyalty to obviously inferior crew members is puzzling, stated Primary Nexari Unit 7749. Its mechanical voice devoid of emotion. Several of your subordinates possess lower technical qualifications than yourself. Logically, you should have prioritized your own survival to preserve superior capabilities. Tom laughed, a sound that seemed to cause minor system fluctuations in the nearby Nexari units. You really don't get it, do you? Those inferior crew members are my friends. I've worked with some of them for years. I know their families. I was at their weddings. One of them helped me through my divorce. You can't just calculate human worth based on technical specifications. Friendship is an inefficient allocation of resources, Unit 7749 replied. Emotional attachments serve no productive purpose. Wrong, Tom said firmly. Friendship is what makes us want to be better. It's what makes us work harder, fight longer, and never give up. Without it, we'd just be biological machines, like you. The statement caused a ripple of reaction throughout the cybernetic crew, their optical sensors flashing in rapid sequences as they processed this unexpected perspective. The rescue operation took 18 standard hours to complete. Every human crew member was successfully evacuated and provided with medical care. The coalition species worked with an efficiency that impressed their own military commanders. But what truly shocked the galaxy was what came next. 3 days after the rescue, an unprecedented event occurred. The Galactic Coalition Council, which had met in the same chamber for over 2,000 years, convened an emergency session specifically to discuss the human distress signal and its aftermath. High Speaker Vorthon of the Threnody energy beings materialized at the center of the circular chamber, her form shifting between various states of matter as she addressed the assembled representatives. Fellow council members, we face an unprecedented situation. The human distress signal has been analyzed by every major scientific institution in coalition space. The unanimous conclusion is disturbing. Ambassador Krixtel of the Mokari hive mind spoke with the collective voice of billions of beings. The humans display a form of cooperation that transcends individual survival instincts. This suggests a level of social evolution that we had not detected in our previous assessments. The Kellery representative, floating in a specialized water-filled chamber, released a complex pattern of chemical signals that the translation matrix interpreted as deep concern. Our psychoanalysis indicates that human emotional bonding actually enhances problem-solving capabilities under extreme stress. This contradicts our fundamental understanding of emotional response systems. General Throckmore of the Vorthan military caste stood at attention, his reptilian features showing unusual uncertainty. The tactical implications are significant. A species that refuses to abandon wounded or trapped members presents unique strategic considerations. Their loyalty could be either a critical weakness or an unexpected strength in combat situations. The Nexari representative, a collective consciousness speaking through multiple units simultaneously, added their analysis. Human technology may be primitive, but their social cohesion creates force multiplication effects that our models had not anticipated. A group of humans working together appears to be capable of achievements beyond the sum of their individual capabilities. Finally, the Etherian ambassador, whose gaseous form swirled in complex patterns within a containment field, contributed the most surprising observation of all. We have monitored human communications for decades, dismissing them as irrelevant chatter from a primitive species. However, analysis of their historical records reveals a consistent pattern of individuals sacrificing themselves for group survival, often with no rational benefit to their genetic line. This suggests a form of consciousness that may be unique in the galaxy. High Speaker Vorthan allowed silence to fill the chamber as the implications sank in. For millennia, the coalition species had operated under the assumption that intelligence naturally led to logical, self-interested behavior. Individual survival and the preservation of superior genetic or technological characteristics were considered the highest priorities of any advanced civilization. The humans had shattered this assumption. They had demonstrated that an entire crew would choose collective death over individual survival, not due to mental deficiency or primitive thinking, but as a conscious choice based on what they considered to be their highest values. The question before us, Vorthan continued, is whether we have been fundamentally wrong about the nature of intelligence and civilization. If emotional bonds and irrational loyalty can enhance survival and problem-solving capabilities, then our entire framework for understanding galactic society may be flawed. Ambassador Zethki of the Zephyrians, who had led the rescue operation, spoke for the first time during the session. I have personally observed these humans during their rescue and recovery. Their behavior is consistent with their distress message. They express genuine concern for each other's welfare. They share resources without being compelled to do so, and they display what can only be described as joy when reunited with their crewmates. This is not primitive behavior. It is sophisticated social evolution that we have failed to recognize. The chamber fell silent as the most powerful beings in the galaxy grappled with a revelation that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence, civilization, and what it meant to be truly advanced. General Throckmore finally broke the silence. If we accept that human social bonding provides practical advantages, then we must also consider that our dismissal of their species may have been premature. They may possess capabilities that could benefit the coalition. More than that, added the Mokari representative. If their model of cooperation is more effective than our individual-focused approaches, then perhaps we should be learning from them, rather than ignoring them. The implications were staggering. For the first time in galactic history, a supposedly primitive species had forced the most advanced civilizations to question their fundamental assumptions about intelligence and society. High Speaker Vorthan began to shift through rapid energy states, indicating intense deliberation. The Council will establish a formal committee to study human social structures and their practical applications. Additionally, we will consider opening formal diplomatic channels with Earth. The announcement sent shockwaves throughout Coalition space. For the first time in galactic history, a non-member species had not only gained the attention of the Coalition, but had forced them to reconsider their basic understanding of civilization itself. How a single SOS changed the galaxy's view of humanity. Third part. 6 months after the rescue of the Times, Terran Hope *. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the most prestigious conference room in the galaxy. The Coalition Central Command Chamber on the neutral station of Haven Prime had never hosted a representative from Earth. The massive crystalline structure floated in the void between 7 different star systems, accessible only to the most advanced spacefaring civilizations. Sarah wore her dress uniform, the deep blue fabric bearing the insignia of the Terran Deep Space Service. She was no longer just a mining ship captain. Earth had promoted her to admiral and appointed her as humanity's first official ambassador to the Galactic Coalition. The weight of representing her entire species pressed down on her shoulders as she faced the assembled leaders of 7 different civilizations. The past 6 months had been extraordinary. The rescue footage had spread throughout Coalition space faster than anyone anticipated. What started as a simple distress call had become the most analyzed communication in galactic history. Universities across hundreds of worlds studied the human crew's behavior. Military academies incorporated case studies about loyalty and group cohesion into their curricula. Social scientists published thousands of research papers trying to understand the phenomenon of human emotional bonding. High Speaker Vorthan materialized at the center of the chamber, her energy form cycling through patterns that indicated formal ceremony. Admiral Chen, you stand before the Coalition Council as the representative of humanity. This is unprecedented in our history. No species has ever been granted a hearing without first demonstrating advanced technological capabilities or significant military power. Sarah nodded respectfully. Honored High Speaker, I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak for my people. You are here because your species has demonstrated something we had not encountered before, continued Vorthan. Your distress signal and the subsequent rescue operation have forced us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about intelligence and civilization. Over the past months, each coalition species had conducted extensive research into human society and history. What they discovered had shaken their understanding of evolutionary development. Ambassador Zethki spoke first. Our anthropological teams have studied your species' historical records. We found consistent patterns of individuals sacrificing themselves for groups, even when those groups contained genetically unrelated members. This behavior extends back thousands of your years, across all human cultures and geographical regions. The Zephyrian displayed a series of holographic images, showing human rescue workers entering burning buildings, soldiers covering retreats to save their comrades, doctors treating patients during plagues despite personal risk, and ordinary citizens helping strangers during natural disasters. This is not learned behavior, Zethki continued. It appears to be fundamental to human nature. Your species has evolved cooperation as a survival strategy to a degree we had not thought possible. General Throckmore of the Vorthans, his scaled features showing grudging respect, added his military perspective. We have analyzed human conflict throughout your history. While you certainly engage in warfare, even your wars demonstrate unusual patterns. Soldiers regularly risk their lives to rescue wounded comrades. Units often fight to the death, rather than abandon fallen members. Prisoners of war are protected and cared for by their own side. He paused, his reptilian eyes studying Sarah intently. Most remarkably, you have instances of opposing sides cooperating during humanitarian crises, temporarily setting aside conflicts to help civilians or address natural disasters. This suggests a moral framework that transcends immediate tactical considerations. The Mokari representative, speaking with the collective voice of trillions of connected minds, offered their analysis. We initially assumed that human individualism was a sign of primitive social development. However, our studies reveal that your individualism serves to strengthen group bonds, rather than weaken them. Each human's unique capabilities contribute to collective strength, while shared values and emotional connections ensure cooperation. Ambassador Kef Tor of the Kelari, surrounded by the complex chemical signals that served as their language, presented the most surprising findings. Our psychological analysis indicates that human emotional responses actually enhance cognitive performance under stress. The neurochemical changes triggered by concern for others increase problem-solving abilities, extend physical endurance, and improve tactical thinking. What we had dismissed as irrational emotion is actually an advanced survival mechanism. The Nexari Collective, speaking through their primary unit, offered a perspective that shocked even their allies. We have observed human-machine interfaces and found something unexpected. Humans working with artificial intelligence systems achieve better results than pure AI alone. The human capacity for intuition, creativity, and emotional intelligence appears to complement technological capabilities in ways our purely logical approaches cannot match. Finally, the Etherian ambassador's gaseous form swirled in complex patterns, as they delivered perhaps the most profound observation. We have studied the concept you call love in its various forms: parental love, romantic love, friendship, and even love of abstract ideals like justice or freedom. We have concluded that this emotion is not a weakness or inefficiency, but rather the most sophisticated motivational system we have encountered. It drives humans to achievements that pure logic cannot explain. Sarah listened to these analyses with growing amazement. The galaxy's most advanced species had spent 6 months trying to understand humanity, and had reached conclusions that even she found surprising. High Speaker Vorthon's energy patterns shifted to indicate a momentous decision. Admiral Chen, the Coalition Council has reached a unanimous conclusion. Humanity possesses social and emotional capabilities that complement our technological and logical advantages. We formally invite Earth to join the Galactic Coalition as a full member species. The chamber fell silent. Sarah felt her heart racing as she processed the magnitude of what had just been offered. Membership in the Galactic Coalition would give humanity access to advanced technologies, trade routes, and scientific knowledge that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. But she also understood that this invitation came with responsibilities and expectations that would change humanity forever. "Honored Council," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her inner excitement. "I accept this invitation on behalf of Earth and humanity. However, I want to make something clear. If you're expecting us to become more like you, you'll be disappointed. We will always be emotional, irrational, and stubbornly loyal to each other." General Throckmore's reptilian features curved into what might have been a smile. "Admiral, we are not inviting you to change. We are inviting you to teach us." The implications of his statement rippled through the chamber. The most advanced species in the galaxy wanted to learn from humanity. Ambassador Zethke explained further. "Each of our species has achieved technological advancement by emphasizing certain traits. We, Zephyrians, focused on harmony and aesthetic achievement. The Mokari developed collective consciousness. The Threnodi mastered energy manipulation. The Kelari perfected logical analysis. The Vorthans created military efficiency. The Nexari achieved technological integration. The Etherians attained philosophical transcendence." She paused, her crystalline skin shifting through thoughtful blues and purples. "But in our pursuit of these specializations, we may have lost something essential. None of us retained the emotional bonds that make humans so resilient and creative. We want to understand how to incorporate human-style cooperation into our own societies." Opry. Over the following weeks, the integration process began. Human liaison officers were assigned to each coalition species to establish cultural exchange programs. Earth's universities partnered with galactic institutions to share knowledge about emotional intelligence, psychology, and social dynamics. Coalition scientists visited Earth to study human communities, families, and social structures. The results were remarkable. Zephyrian artists began incorporating human concepts of love and friendship into their crystal sculptures, creating works of unprecedented beauty and emotional depth. Mokari hive minds experimented with allowing individual voices to emerge within their collective consciousness, leading to breakthrough innovations in problem-solving. Threnodi energy beings began forming voluntary partnerships rather than existing in isolation, discovering that collaboration enhanced their molecular manipulation abilities. Kelari psychologists developed new therapeutic techniques based on human emotional support systems. Vorthan military units implemented human-style loyalty training, dramatically improving unit cohesion and combat effectiveness. Nexari cybernetic beings began incorporating emotional simulation subroutines, finding that this improved their decision-making algorithms. Even the ethereal Etherians began forming philosophical discussion groups that resembled human friendships. But perhaps the most significant change was in coalition policy. For the first time in galactic history, the coalition began actively protecting less advanced species rather than simply ignoring them. They established rescue protocols for ships in distress, regardless of the species involved. They created humanitarian aid programs for civilizations facing natural disasters or resource shortages. They even developed diplomatic protocols for peaceful contact with primitive species. The principles that had governed the Times Terran Hope Times crew's final days, loyalty, courage, and refusing to abandon others, began spreading throughout coalition space. Sarah often reflected on the irony of their situation. Humanity had been desperate to join galactic civilization, convinced that they needed to prove their technological advancement to earn respect. Instead, they had gained acceptance by demonstrating that their supposed weaknesses were actually unique strengths. The mining ship Times, Terran Hope Times, had been rebuilt and turned into a memorial, orbiting Earth as a reminder of the day humanity changed the galaxy. But the real memorial was the transformation of galactic society itself. A single SOS signal, broadcast by a dying ship in a remote asteroid field, had accomplished what decades of diplomatic efforts could not. It had shown the galaxy that true strength came not from advanced technology or logical thinking, but from the simple willingness to stand by each other, no matter the cost. As Sarah stood in her office aboard the New Earth Embassy station, watching ships from 7 different species working together in perfect harmony, she smiled and whispered the words that had become the unofficial motto of the new coalition: "We leave no one behind." The galaxy had learned that the most advanced civilizations were not those that had transcended emotion and loyalty, but those that had learned to harness these forces for the greater good. Humanity had not just joined galactic society. They had shown it how to be better than it had ever imagined possible. The SOS that was meant to be humanity's final message had instead become their introduction to a future where the entire galaxy embodied the best of human values, while maintaining the diverse strengths of each species. It was a future where no one would ever be left behind.